Well, welcome. Tonight we're going to talk with somebody who you don't see directly all the time, but his hand, his influence, his attitude touches our lives all the time. We're very unique in Milford, and we'll go through some of the areas that I find you don't hear about. It's with our police force and the people who risk their lives every day to make sure that we don't have to. New chief, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Good to
Why don't
see
we
you, my
start
friend.
with an introduction?
Robbie Tusino, I'm your new police chief. I was given the nod, the final nod after the search committee on September 21st. And I've been in the big seat ever since.
How's the big seat feel?
And I said this, it wasn't that much. It wasn't a
Well, you
big-
were already
I was
one
a deputy
seat.
chief, yeah. I was already a deputy chief. And, Chief Falvey was so good about myself and Dep Sanchione keeping us involved and engaged and all the trainings and what you need to be chief. And he really brought us in to that and let us be a crucial part of the decision-making process. So it hasn't been a big leap. The budget, we work together with the finance committee. I've been, doing stuff with the budget now for 3 years. Went to the classes that you had to go to before becoming deputy chief, and just working with the finance committee, and everybody on that committee is great. Even when, questions come up, the back and forth, the dialogue with that committee is great. So yeah, it hasn't been a quantum leap at all.
Well, you've had some monumental changes to the facility.
There's been some big moves.
I mean, we're talking $1 million
Yeah.
plus.
Yeah, there's some big things going on at the police department. Now, one thing is the communication center, right? The complete overhaul of the communication center. Because what was the selling factor that they're going to shut it off on June 6th of this year? It's got to be done. It's like, what do we do? But that, some people look at it as, well, it's about time you guys get with the times. Well, I look at it as a sense of fiscal prudence through the years, right? We put it off until we can't put it off anymore.
Well, I mean, realistically, it shows the support that your organization has within Milford.
Absolutely.
Because when our head of IT came to us and said, we need to do this, the officers are down by Olivas listening to Franklin Fire
Department on their radio. That's true. Yeah, it's all true.
And it only took microseconds to sit there and say, wait a minute, officer needs help. Can you hear me? Help,
Right.
help.
Yeah.
That just, you can't have it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a lot of money,
Yeah.
and surprise money.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, things like $400,000 for the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
And we're picturing Milford High School, little locker.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what you have now. Yeah.
It's what we had.
Yeah.
Now you turn around and say,
Yeah.
but today's day and age,
Yeah, it doesn't work.
you have to have smart lockers.
Yeah, you have to have secure lockers, but you have to also put in the context. So last month I attended a training in Shrewsbury, and they just finished completing their brand new police station. You're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, and we're not looking to do that. That's not even in the wheelhouse. But we have to have the common sense to understand that those locker rooms were over 20-something years old, and they were designed in a time that the laws have changed as far as securing weapons, firearms, and other facets of gear that we carry. So these things need to be secured, and we can't put the onus on the officer to take them home. That's a bad look.
And that was something that when Chris was telling us, well, here's what the law, and candidly I said, I don't care what the law says in this case.
Mm-hmm.
What makes sense?
Yeah.
Asking an officer to take home gun, bullets, taser,
Yeah.
it just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Not giving an officer a proper place to charge his radio and phones and whether the law says we have to.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
This is Milford. We
Yeah.
do things that make sense
Yeah.
to protect our people.
Yeah. Yeah. And the way that, and again, it's not to the fault of anybody, but when I came in as deputy, that was one of the things I was charged with. It was, one of my responsibilities was the building. What needed to be fixed, what needed to be addressed. Everything from IT to the lockers. And, when you go down to your lockers and you're talking with, the guys and the girls, and you're like, how's your locker? Oh, my locker's great, Dep, when I was deputy chief. Oh, good. Yeah, as long as I just push it hard and I put the clip on it to hold it locked. I'm like, what? Well, I had to put a clip. I bought a clip at True Value, and I push it, and then I slide it over so it stays shut. And I'm like, okay, so it doesn't lock? Oh, Dad, the lock's never, since I moved into it, the lock's never worked.
God.
And I'm like,
well,
no
I
good.
want you to go out and risk your life,
Right.
but I can't buy you a locker to properly store. Because,
You're-
you're talking about ammunition.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about
Tasers, guns.
guns.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
God help us if
Yeah.
somebody, I know it's secure and all, but
But still,
somebody could get down there.
of course. Yeah.
What do they say? It only takes once for a
That's
bad
it.
man or a bad woman to do some damage.
Yeah. And here's the thing. When we issue you these things, we give you the stern look. You're responsible for all these things. But put them in a locker that you can't lock.
Right.
I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. So we got that done, and certainly the communications project. And I tell the story, and no one believes me, that when I walk into dispatch one day and there's a car battery on the counter, a big car battery, and I'm like, immediately I say to myself, who brought their dirty car battery into the police station? This is an outrage. And I'm like, wait, there's a wire coming
And the
from
sad part is, it is an outrage.
it is an outrage. I'm like, well, there's a wire on it. And then one of the dispatchers says, oh, Dep, don't be careful, because that's giving us power to this backup that failed, and we're waiting on this part. And I'm like, you're kidding, right? They're like, no.
And again, when Paul Revere put it in,
Yeah.
it was probably state of the art.
Right.
But, it got to a point, Chris, when he came to us, he said, these are the things we need to do.
Yeah.
The cameras needed to be upgraded.
Absolutely. Huge.
A lot of reasons, but again, safety of the officers.
Yeah.
Safety of the criminals.
Well, safety of the people that, we take into custody for, numerous reasons, right, that are in the station. The Milford Police Station is a building that's a living, breathing place. It has people come in and out of it 24/7. It deals with some of the biggest crises in Milford. It tries to provide services to people when they're at their most vulnerable and when life has not thrown them a curveball but a smash over the head. All these things go on in that station 24/7 all year long. And we had a camera system, as you know, that we would look at it and say, is that a male or a female?
Yeah.
Crazy. District attorneys and judges saying, what kind of camera system do you have there? This has got to go. It was the original camera system. So the good news is these changes that we've made and the changes that we're making, they're going to last us, 10, 20 years. In 20 years, that chief will be looking to fix things. But the communication center, and I tell everybody this, was a lot of money, is a lot of money. That's police, fire, and EMS. Everything starts there. You call for an ambulance, it starts there.
Well, what I was told, me, I'm cheap as cheap can be when it comes down to town money.
Frugal.
When I was told that as of June, our dispatch center would go dark because everything was, when Paul
Switch it
Revere
over.
put in the cables,
Copper
it was
line.
copper lines,
Yeah.
and now everything's fiber.
Fiber, yeah.
And saying, how far can a string and a cup go on a fire engine?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, it was great because you surprise town meeting, you surprise everybody in the administration by saying, I need $1 million.
Yeah.
No pushback. Once we explained why,
Yeah.
no pushback. And you never read that. You know, you read about San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Minneapolis had that great idea of reduce the police force and crime will go down.
Uh,
And how's that working?
yeah, yeah. No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all.
You know,
Yeah.
it became so obvious that if you don't have officers,
Mm-hmm.
the bad people are going to be more.
Free reign.
Yeah, they're going to. Now, Milford cops have a reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Is it true that, well, I heard a judge
Mm-hmm.
made a comment.
That's right. I was there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about it, because that's
So-
something we don't hear.
Yeah. So this was a trial that I had, and we were in Worcester, and defense counsel, who I absolutely love, was making a robust argument. And the judge took off his glasses, this was a couple of years ago, and wiped his head and said, look, you got arrested in Milford. So right off the bat, you were given 5 chances and every excuse in the book before they arrested you, because that's not the Milford Police Department. And I've always remembered that, and I took that as such a compliment. You know, I get the, wow, Robbie, you're very liberal. You're a liberal guy. And I say, well, I'm a realist. You know, I never liked the stigma that goes along that police, you know, you're going to jail, they're doing this, they're doing that. Well, that's just not the reality. You know, we recently had this snowstorm that came up. And it just makes sense that vehicles need to be off the road.
But the law's simple. If
Right.
you're parking incorrectly,
Ticket
ticket and tow it.
Right. Simply stated, but how are we benefiting people? Think of the poor man or woman that's worked all day, come home, parked, went inside, it wasn't snowing,
Right.
falls asleep on the couch, has a late dinner, goes from couch to bed because they're so exhausted to get up and do it again because they're just trying to make ends meet, and they go out front and their car is towed.
Well, I mean, now they can't get to work.
Oh, can't get to work, financially.
I mean, it's not cheap to pay off
and-
a tow bill. And
Right, exactly. So the reputation that we have is, you know, the first thing we used to do is we pull up to the house, turn the lights on, hit the air horn once or twice, right? That doesn't work. Then we run the plate, go knocking on doors to get the vehicle moved. Who else does that? What other police agency does that? I'll answer that for you. Nobody does. Nobody does. We go out of our way to give people rides when we have to help people out. And that's the way we want to stay, and that's the way we're going to stay.
but even speeding tickets, parking tickets,
Mhm.
it's always, well, you must be on a quota
Right.
to make revenue.
Yeah. No
Milford
such-
has a unique
Very unique.
position.
That's right. The revenue for a fine doesn't go to the police department. So whether we're writing 100 tickets or we're writing 1 ticket, none of that money comes to us. You know, it goes into the town, the general fund, and more often than not, officers will do what I call an education campaign. We'll go out to neighborhoods. We'll put up the flashing signs that I think caught you speeding once or twice, Al. They might have flashed in your direction. But we like to do this information campaign because honestly, and we've had these conversations before, you and I, on this very show, when I was an officer some years ago, there's a misunderstanding. Like, well, what's the speed limit here? 25? And they're like, oh, really, it's 25? Yeah, slow down. And, you know, the running joke is it's usually somebody who lives on the street.
Yeah.
It really is, you know, and I'm like, well, your neighbor down the street thinks you should slow down. You know, so I like that. I like the awareness.
Well, Robbie, I like the idea that Milford police officers will give a ticket for safety,
Absolutely.
not for revenue.
Not even close. Not even in their wheelhouse. No. And I've always been a big fan of you know, the written warning. I mean, I came from New York City and we didn't have a written warning.
Is that right?
Yeah, they didn't have written warnings. They still don't in New York City. Either you're getting a fine or you're not getting anything. You know? My big story, every time I used to write a written warning, I said, listen, it's a written warning. You know what this is for? They're like, no. I said, so next time when you're speeding, I said, I can look back and say, I gave you a warning last time. So, listen, we're all guilty of driving and, not paying attention. And I mean, look at the average car. It's set up like your living room, right? You get radios, you get Bluetooths. I always love the commercial. It's sound free in this car. Well, that's not such a good thing, that you can't hear anything in your car. That's not such a good thing. So I do like that. I like that we're not driven to go out there and write tickets.
Now, I, like many others, was under the impression that once the Quinn bill,
Mhm.
the bill that paid officers to further their education,
Mhm.
went away,
Mhm.
that was it. But my understanding is Milford took a different tack.
Yeah, when I was actually president of the union, the state stopped funding Quinn. And what we did here, and we had the foresight to realize that when you're putting education at the forefront of policing, that's where you get the real change, right? I've always been an advocate that education is a sledgehammer, and it breaks down the walls of bias. It breaks down walls of misunderstanding. It's just, it's a good, I don't know, a good tool for really expanding one's perception of their community. And in Milford, we still have Quinn educational incentive. We don't call it Quinn anymore. But the officers will get compensated for associate's degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree. And it's a great program. And you can really see it in the officers when they complete these degrees. You can see it in the reports that they write, you know. And I mean, it's just such a sense of self accomplishment, you know.
Well, to me, it's a gesture from the town to say, we do value what you do. And we're
Yeah.
willing to put our money where our mouths are.
Right. Well, and that's just it, right? You can't. And how lucky are we in this day and age that we have educated, well-rounded officers? I mean, that's what you want. You know, you want someone who's out there thinking with their head and instead of trying to mitigate with their false bravado, which some other cities have suffered with across the country. You know, we don't have that here in Milford. You know, we're very lucky. Like I said, officers go out of their way to get people home, get people to another town where they live, make arrangements for people. And that speaks volumes. I mean, the Family Services Unit, last year, they logged over 1,000 calls. Over 1,000 calls that deal with the
Now,
disease.
explain the Family Service Unit.
So, the Family Services Unit was kind of a brainchild of mine that came to fruition from the help of Amy Leone, Department of Public Health. And what the problem was is we're on this merry-go-round with people who suffer from the disease of addiction, mental health and wellness. And the problem is simple things, right? There was a person, is a person, and I'm keeping it vague for a reason. There is a person in Milford that needed to have meds on a regular basis because of this person's struggle with a long history of mental illness. So I go to CVS one day, and I'm there for personal reasons, and this person is there, and this person is out in the parking lot having a hard time. And I said, well, what's going on? Well, they won't give me my medicine because they said my insurance. And I'm like, whoa, stop. Relax. I go inside. I said, well, what's going on? And I ID myself as a police officer. Oh, yeah, we know who you are. I'm like, well, what's going on with this person? Well, and the insurance was, they're changing the insurance or something with the state. And I said, okay, but why can't they get their medicine? Well, they can have it next week. I'm like, that's not going to work.
Somebody's hurting right now.
Right.
And you're saying, chill for a week.
Right. It's not going to work. By next week, this person will have spiraled out of control, had to be restrained at the hospital, resources, injury to potential nurses, bystanders, cops. No. So what I did at that moment is I paid out of pocket. Here you go. Let's just get them the medicine. I don't care. Boom, boom, boom. Fast forward. That script goes. Same thing happens. I'm back there again. Get this person the medicine. Okay. The point of family services is they do the follow-up that nobody else is doing.
Well, when you first brought it up, I remember you and Amy came on the show and you were talking about how the hospital
Yep.
can take it so far,
Mm-hmm.
but then where do you put them?
Right. Right. And the time for intervention is not when they're in crisis on the side of the road, Al. Because I promise you, nothing good happens there.
Yeah.
You know, when we have to enter their house because a family member says they haven't been able to take their meds in 2 weeks and XYZ is happening, and I mean, we don't go in, have a cup of coffee, sit down on a Barca lounger and make decisions. It's a fight. And nobody is safe when that happens. So the Family Services Unit, it's about the follow-up, right? It's about the outreach. It's about the follow-up. It's about identifying the triggers in the community or within their home life or within themselves that can be mitigated so they don't spiral out of control. And the success stories that we've had from the Family Services Unit of people who haven't continued to spiral out of control, we've got them off that merry-go-round, as I like to call it. Because, you know, I could have given you a list of people. Oh, what's today? Today's so-and-so. Oh, we're going to be dealing with XYZ. Watch. All right. Or what time of year it is. XYZ is going to happen because so-and-so is upset because their mother, their significant other passed away, and this is the anniversary of it. Well, Family Services Unit and the clinicians, they spearhead all that. And that's making the huge difference. It's really turning into a model, you know, that I hope gets adopted by other communities. You know, it doesn't work, and any clinician worth their salt will tell you having clinicians respond without the police doesn't work. Because when somebody's in that...
When they're in that chronic state, they're not rational.
Right.
And what I guess I never understood is when they said, let's do away with the police and have social workers come.
Right.
I'm all for helping somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But I may put myself in danger and the person if
Huge.
if they've spiraled out of control.
Huge.
I don't know how to calm them down.
No.
I'm going to walk in and say, okay, now please calm down.
Yeah.
That's going to work.
Yeah. It's that I don't know who came up with that concept, but they need to increase their mental health and wellness. You know, nicely put. So what we've done here in Milford is we have the clinicians with the officers. They go out to location, and if somebody is spiraling out of control, now they have a rapport with the clinician and the officer. It's not the first time seeing the officer or the clinician, and they can help reel them back in. And on more than one occasion, we've averted a trip to the hospital or a trip to jail. That's what this is all about.
But if you take them to jail,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not questioning your judgment, but okay, I take them to jail. What does that
Nothing.
solve?
Solves nothing.
Because
Right.
once they calm down,
Right.
you haven't dealt with the root.
Right.
Problem.
Exactly. That's
The root
right.
cause is still, whatever sent them off the deep end
Yeah.
is still there.
Absolutely.
That's why I
Trigger.
loved your concept of the family resources
Yeah.
to
Huge.
kind of calm down the situation
Yeah.
so nobody gets hurt,
Right.
but then start dealing with the root cause.
Absolutely. It's the only way to
How
get
many
this-
how many officers do we have in Milford?
in the police department? 50.
Now, Anthony, close your eyes and ears because I'm going to ask a question. Are we properly staffed?
No. No. And I'm going to tell you why we're not properly staffed. It's simple. We've been at these numbers for, I don't know, I was probably at Milford High School. We had the same number of police officers probably. The issue is, so take traffic for instance, right? I had this community in town, and I won't I don't know if they want to be mentioned, so I won't mention them. Great group of people lived on the street, and I personally went out and met with them as deputy chief, and that's another thing. I think that's important, right? I spend my time as chief, believe it or not, going and meeting with people who complain about speed or stop signs. I try to have a meeting with them to get a dialogue to explain why we can or can't do things, and that's a resource which has been invaluable. But anyway, so
Yeah, but that's important because if I don't understand and I think you're writing tickets to save your budget,
right,
well, I could be upset over the fact that you ticketed me
right,
so you could save your budget,
right, and not know that that's not a real thing.
not knowing that you don't get any of it.
Right, right.
Sorry.
No. Yeah, no. But again, that's why I like having the dialogue. That's like why I like going out there and talking to people. So in this one neighborhood, I said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do an awareness campaign. Okay, that's great. That's awesome. Thank you, deputy. Thank you. I send some officers out there to do some radar enforcement to bring awareness, and I get a call like 3 days later from the citizen. Yeah, they were here, but they left right away. I said, are you home? Yeah, all right, let me come by. Meet me outside. This was in the summer, we're talking. I said, and I pull up the log. Why did they leave? I said, they left because they had to go to a sex assault. Somebody was sexually assaulted and barricaded in the house and all this other stuff. Oh. So I can't, to the point of staffing, I can't justify sitting somebody here, which is important. I mean, motor vehicles injure and kill more people than guns and drugs combined. Right? I can sit here and say to you I know your reputation pretty well. You got a pretty solid reputation now. I can sit here and say to you with 100% certainty, I don't think you're going to be arrested for trafficking drugs or in a shootout. Right? Okay. But I can't tell you that you're not going to be in a catastrophic car accident. I can't. I don't know that you're not going to get rear-ended, sideswiped, suffer an injury. Every time you drive, the odds of you not getting into an accident goes down. So, these are things that we need to address. We need to take care of. I don't have the resources dedicated to do that. It's just not happening enough. They do it when they're not doing other things. Milford is a lot busier than people think. That's the problem.
Well, that's one of the questions. I mean, when we had Chief Nelson on,
Mm-hmm.
everybody thinks that the Milford Fire Department are firefighters that do a little bit of paramedic work.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start understanding that the bulk of their work
Is
is emergency services,
Absolutely.
not fires.
Not fires, right.
If, without knowing how to say it, so pardon my ignorance, an officer comes on a shift,
Mm-hmm.
what's the percentage of time they're facing, I hate to say real crime
Mm-hmm.
versus routine, traffic stops versus sex offenses?
I would say honestly that in an 8-hour shift, especially on the 4 to 12, like if you listen to the police on the 4 to 12, they're going from call to call to call to call to call to call. Like on the way here, they were going to I'll try to keep it vague. A person slumped over a wheel unconscious, right? They were going to that. They were clearing a domestic that happened. And I looked at the computer and they were off on an accident. Now, this is all at one time that this is going on. To the point that I almost wasn't going to come here and go to one of the calls if somebody didn't free up and go to it. I left my office 3 times last week to go to calls because there was nobody to go to calls. We're just not doing a good job of meeting the calls for service that we have. I brought some paperwork here. So, this is, shocking to some people. So I wanted to take this folder. I took it out, and I gotta make sure I get it back. I'm not gonna show too much of it. I'll show it this way. See each one of these pieces of paper, Al? You know what each one of these pieces of paper are? They're a human life. Each one of these pieces of paper are an overdose that the police got to before anybody. Now there's the key. They got to before the ambulance, before the fire department, before anybody. Gave Narcan, ventilated them, and save their lives. Each one of these, and I'm holding it face down for a reason because there's names and stuff.
Well, there's confidentiality.
Yeah, there's confidential, that's why I'm holding it down. But you can see all these pieces of paper. Each one of these is a human life. How do you explain that to everybody, what we're doing?
You can't, because most people, we heard, well, you don't want to walk through this section. And I said, why? I'm one of the old Milford people that I still think I could walk anywhere in my little town and not worry. How busy with crime is Milford?
Well, it's pretty busy. So I also printed out some calls. Last year, we had, now these are confirmed working cases, working sexual assaults. What do I mean by that? There was almost 40 sexual assaults. Now, do you...
In a year?
Yeah. Not just reported. I mean actual cases.
Confirmed.
Confirmed sexual assaults.
That's almost one a week.
Yeah. Confirmed cases. And if you can imagine the massive undertaking that goes into investigating a rape, a serious sexual assault, because this is what I'm talking about. The resources it consumes, rightfully so, because I don't think there's a worse crime in the world. Sorry. I think that rape is probably one of the worst crimes in the world. If you can imagine the resources it consumes, the outreach needed to try to make that victim whole again, which I don't think you can ever truly do, the prosecution side of it, Al, I could tie up 5 detectives on one case for months.
And you have one new one every week, almost.
Right. And being a sex assault investigator requires, as you can imagine, special training, right? Because to interact with the victim.
But Robbie, it's not just training. You could train me all night long. I don't know that I'd have the intestinal fortitude to see somebody, because you hear that they sexually assaulted a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I could hold myself back.
Yeah.
I mean, I admire these police officers that can go into a burning building and not worry about them, because but it's not just the training. It's got to be a special person, because...
Well, the impact on it, right? We had, and I don't mind bringing this up, before the holidays, a police sergeant from another agency took his life in Milford. He killed himself. He came home from his shift and killed himself. And I was there, my officers were there, and...
Is it just too much? Does it just build up? And
yeah. And, it's...
how many times, how much can you absorb?
Well, so, to give it some balance, right, he had just received an award for saving somebody's life from his agency. He just received an award for saving somebody's life. Beautiful children. And took his own life. So, one of the guys came up to me after and said, Chief, you said something there that was pretty moving, and it's still affecting me. And I said, what did I say that affected you? Well, you walked in the room and you put your hand on his shoulder and you said sorry. I said, well, I am sorry. I'm sorry that nobody knew how much he was suffering, right? And this is why the average age of a police officer having a heart attack is 46. 46 years old. It's the average age of a police officer having a heart attack. It's because of those things that you said, right? The images of, young children having their identities taken away from them, having their innocence stripped away from them. I mean, how many people can sit here, Al, and say, yeah, I went to a house the other day that I had to force the door in because the mother was dead of an overdose and the young child was there for days.
My God.
This isn't a movie. These are things that we've all seen.
And you plan, you do, like Narcan.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny where we validate a lot of methods for analyzing inhaled devices.
Yep.
And all of a sudden we had to validate, instead of just straight up with Narcan, 135 degrees, 180 degrees. And I asked, I said, why? They said, well, most times with an inhaled drug, you can tell the person, stand up straight. The people who are dead don't seem to listen.
Yeah, they're not listening too well. Yeah.
So we had to validate how the device works at different
Mm-hmm.
angles. Nobody ever thought about that till it was in the police's hands.
Mm. Yeah, and it, what's interesting, the misconception with Narcan. People think, now obviously I've been giving Narcan for a long time as a paramedic. I've been giving it for 30-something years, right? It's nothing new. We've been carrying Narcan for a long time as paramedics. So what people don't understand is like, oh yeah, the police show up and they squirt Narcan up your nose. Nope, that's not how that works. What we do is we get there. First of all, we have to take out our ambu bag and breathe for you because you're so hypoxic because you haven't been breathing, okay? Then we have to give you Narcan nasally. And then we have to go back and breathe for you, okay? It's not, we walk in and, psst, okay, we're out of here. Nope, doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. So the emotional toll that it takes, and people have to understand when you show up and somebody's loved one is overdosed, dying in front of them, right? Because they're bluer than your jacket and my shirt, all right? Do you think we show up and it's like, hey,
Yeah, you want a cup of coffee?
hey, how you doing? Come on, always over here. Everything good? No. It's screaming as you walk in. It's screaming at you. Do something, he or she is dying, do something. You're not doing something fast enough. They're dying. Sometimes pulling you away or pulling you to. And the chaos and the adrenaline dump on your body. Come on.
Well, a lot of times it's the not understanding. Like
Right.
I remember when the proposal came to us
Mm-hmm.
to set up our own SWAT group.
Mm-hmm. Special operations, yep.
And what threw me over immediately was when the presenter said, we're part of a regional SWAT team.
Mm-hmm.
They can be here within 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm. It's over.
The average incident or situation
Eight
is
minutes.
over in 8.
It's over.
And I remember looking at Chris Moran, who was chair of the FinCom at that time. I said, God help us
Mm-hmm.
if we don't do this
Mhm.
and something happens.
Mhm.
How could we look at any parent and say, but we saved you money, we lost your child?
Yeah, and it's it's interesting that you talk about that, and a lot of people don't know that. So every time there's a large scale event, specifically school, obviously when school's in session, but basketball games, football games, these special operators are there. You might not see them, but they're there. Every single time somebody who is assigned to special operations is working and is in a stone's throw away from the event.
Well,
That's by design.
the thing I love is that they work. I mean, I think of Anthony,
Mm-hmm.
Officer Bavosi, and I say, there's probably no cubbyhole in Milford High that he doesn't know.
None.
He's always there. He knows it as well as you can know it.
We're talking to him the other day about it. Yep.
And then you read about some of these incidents, how
Mhm.
the officers didn't know where to go.
Right. Yep.
So, again, and it's really, really rewarding to hear the teachers talk about Anthony the way they do.
Oh yeah.
How
Asset.
much he loves the school
Yep.
and the kids and
Loves it.
how well respected he is.
Mhm. Yep.
That's got to
Absolutely.
pay benefits all over the place.
Oh, that pays benefits beyond the security that he provides being there. You know, that pays benefits beyond. You know, that's interesting. You bring that up. So that's one of the things I want to do. I want to put on another school resource officer because we have two. We have Anthony that's got to run the whole high school, and then we have Officer Cody Canero that's responsible for all the other schools. It's just too much. It is too much, and you know, we've grown substantially as a town, and especially with the young, I call them the young student population. And you know, here's the interesting thing: when there's incidents that off duty, not off duty, off hours of school, we call Anthony up. He comes out. He knows everybody who's involved. And I've actually had kids from high school kind of have a standoff interaction with me. And the second Anthony shows up, they're like, nah, I'll talk to Officer B. And I'm like, okay, go talk to him.
But see, that's got to permeate their existence.
Yeah.
You know, now when they're home, it has nothing to do with school,
Mm-hmm.
they have a respect. They may not know you, but they have a respect for the uniform
Absolutely.
because of Anthony.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So if something happens off hours, off
Mhm.
campus, they're already giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
Whereas you read in the paper for these big cities
Yep.
that it's the opposite.
Yeah, they don't have that. They lose that. And I've heard Anthony make tough decisions and draw the line in the sand with some of these kids. You know? And he's like, no, we're not doing that.
Well, he doesn't have to necessarily be their friend. He
Yeah.
just has to be fair.
Right. And he is. And they work so well. They're part of the family services unit because a lot of the things that these young students are struggling with translate.
Carry over.
Well, and it comes from the family dynamic. Anthony sees it, Cody sees it, and they work with their group from family services unit to get some services there. You know what I'm saying? To kind
Yeah,
of
and we keep saying Anthony, but Cody's the
Cody
cut
does
from
the
the
other
same
schools.
mold.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Now, I'll let you tell me, urban legend or truth, the immigrants coming in are causing a lot of security problems.
All the problems, blame it all on the immigrants coming
Yeah.
in. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah, we forget that my grandfather was an immigrant in '39 when he came to Milford,
Yeah, so
and my
was
mother 41. You know,
yeah. So is mine. His name, my grandfather's name, is on the World War I monument across from the. He landed in America from Italy, and they said, "You want to be a citizen?" He said, "Yes." They said, "Sign here." Sent him join the army, and there you go. He was in the army in World War I and settled in Milford.
but overall, how much of an additional burden, except for the fact there's more people,
Yeah.
are the immigrants?
So that's really it. It's really about more people. It's not a specific thing that's part of any certain ethnicity or culture. There is a cultural shift, right? The dynamic of the cultural differences, but it's not a crime wave. You know, there is, like the Italians suffered, right? There's always a criminal element that preys on their own culture.
And that's something that you read all the time.
Right.
Is every ethnic
Italian
community they prey on themselves
Right.
more than they prey on other people.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Within certain communities, there's a lot of that going on. You know, we have some investigations now that are only targeting people of certain backgrounds. It's not going into the other ethnic groups. It's staying within their group, and it reminds me of the Italian mob. You know, you'd have somebody that would try to open up a store and an Italian tailor or a shoemaker, and who came along paying one protection paid. It wasn't the police, it was the Italian mob. So there is a lot of that going on.
But now we hear about illegal volleyball games and all, and they're being targeted.
Mhm.
Candidly, are they being targeted because of their ethnicity or because of their actions?
Oh, so the illegal volleyball that's going on. It's almost comical how this came to fruition. Is we went to these places so many times, parking complaints, the big lights that are on keeping the neighborhood up, noise complaints. That's how these things came upon the radar, and then it goes one step further that you're getting complaints from people within that group who love the American dream, who love the idea of being part of something in America. And they're coming to us, on the side saying, hey, they're gambling, they're extorting, and they're shipping the money out of the country. Wake up, you guys. And you're like, what do you mean? And they tell you this whole spider web of these gambling rings and what's going on and the extortion and all these things. So these things are really a combination of, I call it almost a broken windows theory, right? You get so many complaints. How many times can I show up at your house and tell you cars can't get down the street, your neighbors can't sleep, you can't do this, shut the PA off? Like I said, we're known for that in Milford, okay? But when it gets into the 20s and 30s, the rubber has to hit the road someplace.
But what can you do?
Well, what we did is we have undercover assets that go into these places, and they pay and they gamble and they buy illegal booze and place bets, and we build a case just like we do anything else, and then we effect arrests and summons people into court. Easy.
See, I have sympathy for the people that came here, whatever way they came,
Mhm.
put their heads down, work,
Mm-hmm.
take care of their family, maybe send money home.
Mhm.
But I have no empathy at all towards somebody who comes and breaks our laws.
Yeah. Mhm.
I know you're limited as to what you can do, but
Yeah, it's a lot of people, that want to be part of their neighborhood, that want to be a subculture within a culture, right? I think they find Milford very welcoming, very welcoming, probably to a fault. I think that we sometimes are blind to the neighborhoods that are put in a hard place, with like having a house. I almost, she brought me to tears. Very sweet woman who lived next to one of the volleyball court places, and I said to her, yo, so why didn't you call sooner? And she said, I said, well, isn't it bothering you? She said, bothering me? I haven't slept in a year.
Hmm.
And, I wake up in the morning and there's beer bottles on my lawn. And there's this, and there's that, and there's this. And I'm like, why didn't you call the police? She's like, I don't know. I didn't want to make any problems. And this lady was an immigrant herself. So.
and I think that's one of the issues is I'm here in a foreign country.
Yep.
I'm trying to blend in,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to cause waves.
Right. Yep. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I ran into it when I was down for an ex-mayor's meeting of the Heights.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all this commotion, and I said, what's that? They said, oh, that's the volleyball games. I said, out in the open?
Yeah.
I was amazed.
Yeah.
They said, oh, don't worry, they'll break them up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and I said this when I was interviewed, it's like anything. It starts off, right? It's like any criminal enterprise. It starts off well-intended because there are so many people that are having gatherings or volleyball games or basketball games or what have you, with the purest intentions, and they're not doing anything wrong. But it's these other places, these, I call them sports betting factories that, you show up and they're like, oh, what are we doing? We're not doing nothing. I'm like, what are you doing? Okay. Because at that picnic table, there's 5 people with a couple $100 in front of them, and there's a person dealing cards. Okay. This person just went to the concession stand and bought 2 beers and a sandwich, and all these lights and this stuff. You don't have permits for any of this. That's the problem. Oh, these are just my friends. Okay, All right. Well, we're going to do that.
Okay, does it say stupid
Yeah.
on my
Yeah.
forehead?
And then when you get, when you end up getting, a ledger book that's got all the bets, I mean, yeah, okay. I know. So,
Now, you absolutely stunned me saying that there's 40 rapes in Milford.
mhm.
Is there other serious crime happening?
We just, a couple nights ago, had a gunpoint robbery in Milford, right on Beach Street.
Armed robbery.
Armed robbery. Two gentlemen, two firearms were shown. Yeah.
How often does something like that happen?
So thankfully, not often enough, and that's a good thing, right? But we've seen the occurrence of these ghost guns in town. We had some officers over the summer that had a very unique standoff with a gentleman that wanted to die suicide by cop.
Yeah.
Had 3 guns on him, and pointed them at officers. And I don't know how they were able to get cover and de-escalate the situation. The family services unit guys were there, and take this person into custody and get them help. And obviously, he faces some charges, but a tense situation.
Well, ghost gun, how do you control something like that?
Yeah, that's the question for the nation. How do we control
I
something?
mean, now that we've got 3D printers that
Mm-hmm.
can print just about anything,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how, because you have a piece.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing illegal about this piece.
Mm-hmm.
But if I combine it with this piece and this piece,
Right.
ruh-roh.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
So we had an armed robbery in Milford.
2 nights ago. Yep. The detectives are following that up, and we're lucky. We have a great detective division. They work great with the state police and other agencies. And that's the other thing too. There's a lot of other agencies in town working with us that I think are going to do some great things. And that's all I'll say about that.
Years ago, we heard about the Framingham gangs coming to Milford.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still an issue?
I think that you have somebody like Officer Bavosi at the high school that really keeps his thumb on the trends, let's say, that come and go through the high school. To the point where I think he has something like 20 different pairs of sneakers because he shows them off to the kids. And you always, when I see him, I'm like, nice kicks, Anthony. And he's like, yeah, I just got these, So it's a concern, but I think we do a great job of mitigating it, and I think we make it very hard for
Well,
them.
I mean, isn't that all you can do is try? I hate to be cold about it, but try and make it so that they don't come to Milford. It's
Yeah.
easier to go somewhere else.
I mean, that's the truth of it.
I mean, I hate to be cold about it, but
Well, no, you're being factual about it. It's kind of like sweeping it down the road. I mean, what else? What's the better approach?
but again, you're limited. The boundaries of Milford limit your
Mhm.
authority.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can keep them out,
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the goal, right? I mean, we want to have a community that's not plagued with any type of gang violence, or kind of gang influence, if you will. But there's always an outlier. There's always somebody that thinks it's a good idea to hang around in those circles, associate themselves with certain groups. That's just, I can promise you, nothing good comes out of it.
well, there's the bad boy attraction. That some of the good kids get pulled by that
Yeah.
gravitational pull of
Yeah.
it could be exciting.
Yeah, we see a lot of young female, older male problems. And it's only because we have such a good partnership with these other agencies that we're able to mitigate that, because that's a big problem.
Now, we hear about how hard it is to maintain a police force.
Mhm.
that the retirements are dwarfing, the rate of retirement is dwarfing
Mhm.
the incoming. And I saw that you just put on a new person.
We did, yeah, we did. We actually have a couple new people, but one of our dispatchers, Jake Mastriana, went from dispatch to police. He put himself into the academy. He's been with us for a long time, and he's now made the progression to a police officer.
And that academy stint, it's not trivial.
No,
I mean,
I couldn't do it again, and you know, I wouldn't want to do it again. I mean, I went to the academy in New York City, but I wouldn't want to do it again. No way. I'm too old.
because I was told it's months and months.
Yeah, it's a long time. It's a long time, and it's a big commitment. Certainly something that you want to be. You got to brace everybody in your wheelhouse for your family, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, you know what I mean, significant others, friends. Everybody's got to get prepared for someone going to an academy, because there's just so much prep work. It just kind of controls your life.
Well, don't take this wrong, but I'm glad nobody in my family is a police officer. Because I don't
understand
know
where
the
you're thinking.
emotional stress it would put. I'd be scared to death.
Yeah, it's yeah, unfortunately for a lot of us who are older and still this younger, a lot of the things that we do gets minimized, and I just think of that young sergeant who took his life. You know, what was going on, or what happened that he thought that was the best way, you know, for him. And this story plays out a lot. You know, a lot of police officers commit suicide.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I admire and I'm very happy that people are stepping up into the role of police officer. But I can't imagine what it's like, whether it's a husband or a wife, going off to work and their significant other not knowing if they're coming home.
Yeah, and you know, and I always say, you know, how did they come home? Did they come home the same way as they left?
Yeah.
Because I doubt it. You know, there's always that kind of what happened during the day and how are you going to process that? Because it's not normal stuff. Think of it. You know, oh, what did you do today? Like I said, oh, I had to force the door in because there was a baby who'd been in the same diaper for 5 days because the mom overdosed and the baby was left with his dead mother. This is all real stuff. So,
Well, thank you, and thank you to your staff.
thank
I
you for
saw
having
a
me here.
group of officers getting ready for their morning routine, and the best thing I could think of is have a boring day.
Absolutely.
You know, I
Yeah.
just thought saying, if I could wish anything for the officers I saw,
Yeah.
I hope you have a boring day.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't say thank you enough.
Thanks for having us. Thank you for the support.
Well, again, support is like respect. It's earned. And I
appreciate
dare
it.
say that your organization has earned the respect and the support of the entire town.
Thank you.
And as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, thank you for joining. God bless, and may tomorrow be a better day than today. And if you go by an officer, wish them a boring day. I think they'll appreciate it. Good night, all.